Good morning. Happy second day of Christmas. Today is December 26th. My name is Corrinala and I'm coming to you from the Pacific Northwest. It is about 5:30 in the morning. I'm walking out to feed the horses. I guess I'm on time in terms of that. I'm going to be a little late to work this morning. 6 a.m. start time. We didn't get home till 10 p.m. last night, so slept in. Have had no early morning knitting time, and I didn't get any knitting done yesterday after we got going on the road. So today's going to be pretty light on knitting content. Here's the creek. It rained a lot yesterday, so this is the outfall. This is upstream. There's the house. I haven't seen the horses since I fed yesterday morning. I assume they still have some hay in their stalls because I doubled their portions. They typically don't eat it all anyway. Pretty tired from all the traveling yesterday. It was a typical gray, rainy Christmas, which is actually preferable to a white Christmas here in the Pacific Northwest because we don't really have the means to maintain plows and stuff. Well, there's the horses right there. Morning, boys. So it really is better if it's gray and rainy rather than white. It sure makes travel easier. Well, I'm gonna get to feeding. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the knitting portion of my podcast. I thought I would sit here and knit and talk about 2024 goals, maybe, because I don't really have any additional knitting to show you. As I mentioned in the earlier segment of this vlog, I didn't do any knitting yesterday after what I had showed you in the morning. So we did the brunch at my sister-in-law and got some nice fun gifts, a lot of chocolate, which is awesome. So I have completely overdone it on chocolate and caffeine this morning. I think I mentioned earlier, we got home around 10 p.m. last night and got up late, which was good. I mean, it was still well before light and I got the horses fed. Honestly, I don't even remember if it was drizzling or what it was doing this morning, but it turned out to be an absolutely gorgeous day. It almost feels like spring, which is a little strange for this time of year, but not completely unusual for us. Randy's taken the week off and is out riding his bike, which is good because this is the first activity he's really been able to do since his car accident last Monday. So I'm feeling very fortunate that he is able to do that this soon, because it's been a full week and he's had some soreness, including his wrist, which is very important for bicycling. I hope it doesn't bother you that I am looking down while I'm knitting. I know a lot of people are able to make eye contact more frequently than I am, even though I'm working on my sock. So it's just a plain round and round and round sock. But I still have to watch. Otherwise, I'm going to drop a stitch or do something silly. So onward with my tales. So goals for 2024. I want to do as much horseback riding and be very clear about my horsemanship goals. I think I'm very clear about my knitting goals. I have a lot of yarn. I have a lot of projects in mind. I may need to buy some yarn. No, that's not what I need to do. That's not what I need to do at all. well, I may need to buy a pattern. I mentioned early on in Vlogmas that I ripped out the Stephen West shawl because maybe it wasn't even that early on. It could have been actually kind of late because I discovered that I had gotten the wrong side and the right side mixed up, and it was just ugly. And also, I wasn't particularly enjoying the shawl. It was just a lot of repeated type knitting. I have found his other shawls to be really fun to knit, so I'm kind of thinking of using that yarn. And I need to find another skein to go with it because it's a 5 skein. No, it's a 4 skein pattern that I ripped out, his Geo Gradient pattern. So I need to find another skein to make it 5 skeins for his hybrid knit along. I think that's what he calls it. I'm not going to do the knit along because I have too many projects. As if you've been watching my Vlogmas, that I have not kept up with my Advent knitting. Not even done with the Arne and Carlos Christmas stocking. Although we are in the 12 days of Christmas. It is the second day of Christmas today, and I should be able to get it finished. I don't know whether I'm going to be getting up super early this week to knit anyway. I may be getting up just early enough to get the horses fed and get to work on time because Randy is off this week. He has earned a week of vacation that he needs to use before the end of the year. And I'm sure he doesn't want to get up early, so I'm willing to comply with sleeping in. No problem here. Horsemanship goals. So I want to ride Odin a lot more. This whole year I focused a lot of my attention on Bragi, but as a full-time working person, there's only so many hours in the day that I can devote to horses. I mean, I typically knit during the dark hours, like super early in the morning or at night. I don't usually do a lot of knitting during the day unless I have a lot of Zoom meetings or I'm going to just take a real quick break. That's not enough time to do something, like ride a horse. So all that to say, I don't really need a second riding horse right now. So I am perfectly willing to let Bragi mature and develop and absorb the slow path to training to be a saddle horse for it to take as long as it takes. He's 5 years old, roughly. I mean, he could still be 4 years old. And Mustangs typically take a long time to mature. And I think geldings in particular take a long time to mature, especially if they're gelded young, because they don't have all those hormones that help them develop at the same rate that stallions and mares, so in other words, unneutered male and female horses have in order to develop. If Bragi wants to take another 4 or 5 years to mature and be ready to be under saddle, that is totally fine with me. So I want to do my best with Odin, do a lot of trail riding and help develop his fitness and kind of his responsiveness under saddle. I've been kind of thinking about maybe doing some, it's called fox hunting. I mean, in the traditional sense of the word. There is a hunt club in south of here, just south of Tacoma, that uses hounds to track scent, a pack of hounds to track scent. And the field follows on horseback. There's a huntsman and what they call whippers in that help kind of make sure the hounds don't go somewhere that they're not supposed to. And then the field is mostly observing. This is a long-standing tradition. Hunting with hounds is not legal in Washington State, where I live. It was outlawed many years ago. And we don't really have foxes here, at least not in the lowlands. There might be foxes in the mountains up at the higher elevations, but there really aren't in the lowlands, and they aren't considered vermin as they are in perhaps Europe or other countries where hounds are used to hunt live prey. In that case, I would agree that it might be a cruel sport if there aren't some parameters put in place, like chasing wild animals. I don't know. I have a lot of conflicting emotions about that. I mean, it's one thing if you're hunting for your own consumption. It's another thing if you're doing it just for sport. I don't really agree with that philosophy. Here in Washington, since hunting live prey with hounds is not legal, we do what is called a drag hunt, and it's mostly to maintain the tradition. A drag hunt is where a scent line is laid out, and then the hounds follow it. So breeding hounds for tracking, scenting, hunting is an art and a science, like most things are with any sort of animal husbandry. Watching hounds work is, it's doing something that they were naturally inclined to do, and breeding for those traits certainly enhances that. So since no live animals are pursued in this, and it's mostly in the name of sport and camaraderie and upholding a tradition in a different way, I guess. It's a more civilized tradition, which, anything that we can make better for all the participants involved, I think is fine with me. So horses and humans tend to enjoy it, and the hounds, of course, do it because that is what they would do naturally. So all that to say, I'm kind of thinking of perhaps going on a few hunts next fall. No. When does hunting season start? Hunting season does start in the fall, but there are an awful lot of activities that happen. There's, the walking out of the hounds in the summer and training the new litters and stuff like that. So thinking about it, I'll put some information about the hunt in the show notes. I will have show notes today, so that you can look it up for yourself and find out any information. And if you have any comments or questions, I welcome them, as long as they are respectful and informed. And even if you disagree, I mean, that's totally fine. We can't all agree on everything, but the main thing is we can be civilized about agreeing, or disagreeing. We don't always have to agree in order to be civil or even like each other. Most families don't agree on everything, but yet we're still families, and we still support each other, and we do what we can to support each other. So that's all I ask. If you disagree and you want to share with me your opinions about anything I say here, please. And who knows, maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe you will have brought up something I hadn't thought of before. The purpose of this podcast is to inform and maybe educate a little bit. Mostly it's just to, just talk about making our way in the world in a kind and a decent way. And of course there's going to be mistakes along the way, and of course there is going to be learning, hopefully, and moving on. So that's why I do this podcast. I like to bring, not only do I love to knit and share that with everyone. I think the knitting community is extremely civilized and supportive, and it seems, I mean, sometimes it seems like there's criticism that isn't necessary, and frankly, no one else's business about why someone does something a certain way or how they're handling their projects. That always surprises me, that someone wants to interject their points of view as if that's the only way to do things. Some people like to knit really fast. Some people like to take their time and really enjoy their projects. Some people like the perfect project. Some people's projects are good enough. I would say I am a mediocre knitter with good enough as my go-to. And I also want to advocate on behalf of Mustangs in particular, just because they have often been misunderstood, maybe livestock in general or horses in general. I mean, they have been a commodity, and as you may realize, that commodities aren't always treated very nicely. And horses are a commodity that have their own sense of self, their own likes and dislikes, and deserve to be, just like any living creature, deserves to be treated well, even if they are destined or doomed, whichever way you want to think about it, destined or doomed to be consumed. I think there's an important aspect of respect and honor to that animal. I feel fairly certain that prey animals realize that their fate in life is to be eaten by something else. And, perhaps they will die of old age. Perhaps we will die of old age. Some of us aren't so lucky. I mean, something happens to people all the time, whether it's a car accident that can really change your life, or a terrible illness, all those things. I think it's accepting it with grace and making your way in the world in the kindest and best way forward is, I think that's a good goal for 2024. And my wish for everyone who views this is to do that, to be kind. And if someone is yelling at you for something that you don't understand or don't agree with, chances are there is something going on in their life, and you may happen to be a convenient target, which is unfortunate. How do I know about this? I think I've mentioned before, I work in public health, and as a public servant, I have to take all kinds of criticism from the public on how we do things. And I would just like to remind people that a lot of these rules are in place ultimately to benefit you, even if they are they can be a terrible inconvenience, and they can delay your progress from getting to point A to point B, whatever that might be. But ultimately it is for your benefit and safety. And it's not always easy to hear that, and some people don't agree with it. And I understand that too. Sometimes I don't agree with it, but as a public servant, I am obligated to uphold those requirements. So, and also as a human being, I am obligated to uphold the requirement to be graceful and kind as much as I possibly can, and beg for forgiveness when I mess up. So I meant this to be talking about goals about my horses, and obviously I'm kind of straying off subject for that. Except that I just want to, talk about hunting. I mean, what is interesting to me about hunting? I love working with the hound, or watching the hounds. I love being with the people who care very deeply about their horses and their hounds and have this extra level of communication with them that I don't have the skills for, but I would like to learn from. It's really fun to ride your horse with a bunch of other people and jump over natural obstacles like logs and or even some human-made obstacles like little jumps and stuff like that. It's really fun. And I think, you know, kind of post-pandemic, our opportunities for fellowship with people that we have stuff in common has really changed. And you know, this is a way to spend some time outdoors and doing something that I enjoy. And I hope all of you who are viewing also have that opportunity for fellowship, whether it's with nature, whether it's with a spiritual or religious organization or whatever it may be. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as some goals for 2024. And I don't really know what else to say about this. I can't really say I have thought about it too deeply at this stage, but I will definitely keep you all along the way. And I have been yammering on enough that I can show you an extra stripe in my sock. So why don't we end it on that? I will post some photos from yesterday's Christmas. So, oh yeah, nice. You can see the kind of brownish and then the pink, and then I've got kind of a lavender, or no, more of a plum. So I will post some photos that were taken by my cousin at the dinner table, Christmas dinner table yesterday. And finally, what am I wearing? This is the Carbeth cardigan. Yarn held to double. I think this might be a Brooklyn tweed yarn, although I don't quite remember. It was a pretty fast knit. The buttons are metal buttons. You can see those. I wear this a lot this time of year because it's nice and cozy and warm. And the yarn is kind of rustic feeling, but it's not itchy. So happy second day of Christmas, and I'll see you tomorrow.